Hey, Jeremy from Lucky Hat Outdoors, and if you've been paying attention to our Instagram and Facebook, you've probably seen that a while back I took a fishing trip to Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and caught a few sturgeon. And this trip presented us a lot of challenges that, quite honestly, we weren't prepared for. We didn't have the ability to carry a lot of equipment, so I ended up going up with just one GoPro and doing the best we can. And when I got back, I realized that we'd gotten some amazing footage, but nothing that I could easily edit into a coherent narrative for an episode. So I decided that we'd just do things a little bit differently, and I would tell you the story of the fishing trip the way I told the rest of the guys, and we'd see how it turned out. So I hope you enjoy. So the trip itself was kind of a whim. My wife had a work conference in Vancouver, and I was going with her, and there was one day where she would be doing conference work all day, and I would basically be on my own. And while I was looking for something to do, I discovered that there was a salmon charter place across the street from our hotel. Well, I checked into prices, and they were a little bit high. So I called a buddy of ours from Texas whose wife was also going to the conference and asked if he'd like to go along. And he said he'd love to, but he was more interested in sturgeon. And to be honest with you, I hadn't even thought of sturgeon. And we checked into it, and we found out that while we were going up, the salmon run hadn't started yet, so sturgeon was our only option. So our buddy in Texas, he looked around and he found a guide and set us up with Lang's Fishing Adventure for a sturgeon fishing trip. So we met Lang at a public boat launch on the Fraser River, and the scene was surreal. I've been on the water a lot in a few different places, and but I've never been that far north, and I've never been to the Pacific coast. So to be under a suspension bridge with these wooded mountains in the distance and fog hanging low, it reminded me of a moody serial killer movie in more than a fishing trip. So Lang used these Daiwa, almost like deep sea rigs. It's a Daiwa bait caster on really stiff bait casting rods, big gear, with braid, about I think 100-pound braid, and he was using the March braid so you could tell what distance ran out. And he had huge, like 6/0, 7/0 hooks, about a foot underneath a giant just chunk of lead brick. And he baited one of the rods with a frozen bait fish, and the other two he had pantyhose that he filled with salmon roe, and he put out there, and just fished them on the bottom. And the bite was about like a catfish. You'd get almost two kind of taps and then a pull, and you'd have to set the hook. And the way Lang described it was the hook set was the most important part, because they have to use barbless hooks, and the sturgeons had hard mouths. And he said if you could keep them on for 10 seconds, you'd probably land the fish, which unfortunately wasn't always true. And the weird thing about the hook set is you'd set the hook good and solid, and it would feel almost like hitting a snag, and then the fish would just start coming towards you. And it was just this weird weight and a little bit of movement until they got up to the boat. And it was when they got up to the boat and you realized that they were going upstream against the river current while you were tugging on them with this heavy line that you really realized what it was you had tangled with.
For a second I didn't think he was there, and then he made sure I knew he was there.
Where'd you go? What's that?
They get real pissed off when they see the boat.
I have a fighting belt. You need one? Yeah, I'll give you one. You can put it right now. There you go. Let's try to stay nice and close so that it doesn't rub into the boat.
Oh, he's running hard now.
The screen turned off and I hit the button. So you gotta have 2 separate videos.
That's all right.
Does the screen just turn off naturally?
I have no idea. I just bought the camera. That's a new one.
How do you know it's recording? Oh yeah, there you go.
He's got the fancy new GoPro with the screen on it.
That's super nice.
And it shoots great video too. Oh, it's when he turns upstream like that that he starts impressing me. Most of the time, I'm like, oh, he's just there. And then this. Can't even hardly tell how strong. There he is. There he is. There he is.
Like 4 feet.
She didn't want to breach though.
No, doesn't want to reach.
Wanted to see me go airborne, man. Oh, he's still got some left though.
His head's all torn up.
Sorry?
His head's torn up. Look at the top of his head. He's got a...
Got a gash on it?
Yeah.
Do sturgeons have any predators out here?
Yeah, we get some sea lions that come up in the winter, feed on them.
We'll get
Okay, walk back. A little bit.
Yeah, he is scuffed up on the head.
Okay, you can put the rod down. Yes, lean it down. That's fine.
Nice.
You know, Lang asked me about the first fish, if it was my biggest, and I think up to that point, that first sturgeon was the biggest fish that I'd ever actually landed as far as weight and length. And you know, the river was super strong and it was tidal, and the tide was ripping out all day. And these fish, they would go down and then they would swim upstream, and you realize that they're hooked, they're fighting you. They have a massive lead weight that they're fighting as well. They're fighting the current, and they're still going down, and they're still going upstream, and at times it seemed like nothing would turn them. I thought that bull reds were crazy, but I've never seen anything like just the raw strength that these fish had. So after my buddy and I each caught a couple of fish, we moved to a better spot where Lang said he caught bigger fish. And he had told us, and we'd seen a little bit before, that during the hook set, a littler sturgeon would shake his head and then sometimes pop the hook off. Whereas the big ones, you set the hook and they would just go about their business. They would just charge off and do their thing as if nothing was happening, and you'd have to fight them in. And we got to this new spot, and it was like that time and time and time again, except for we couldn't get past the 10-second limit. You know, we'd set the hook on what felt like good solid fish, and you can almost feel this mechanical clank as the hook would slip out.
He's kind of just there right now, though.
Just dead weight.
Oh no! He's off.
What? How did that happen?
That was constant pressure the whole time, man.
He just gave me one little...
head shake. Oh no!
No! What in God's name is this rod is unlucky, man? What happened? What? He was there, and then I can't take it.
Part of this was the protections that British Columbia put on sturgeon. Lang had said that they had been fished almost to extinction. It's one of those things that floats around the back of your head, but I'd forgotten, is they are old fish. They grow almost like humans grow, and some of the fish we had already caught were the same age that I am. And they don't even breed till they're 30 some odd years old. So British Columbia tightly controls the population. They only allow catch and release fishing, and they only allow barbless hooks. And that could explain some of the problems we had between the barbless hooks and the hard mouths of the sturgeon. If they get a good head shake or just things don't get lined up right, it was real easy to get off the hook. But that doesn't explain my next fish and the way I lost it.
Oh, watch out, might reach here. Yeah, the line's going away from the boat. Just keep it tight. Pull back, pull back, pull back, pull back. Harder, yeah.
He's taking
Yeah. Pull back.
He came off. He came off.
No! What?
Damn.
What is wrong with me? Rod tip was up. I had. He was dragging.
You know, on the next bite, I set the hook, and it felt like I'd hooked a building. I throw a solid hook set, and it feels like almost no movement. And then it just slowly started taking line, and it just kept taking line. And I fought it and fought it and fought it, and it kept taking line, and we kept it on for about 30-35 seconds, and then all of a sudden just felt this mechanical machine-like clank at the end of my line, and the fish was gone. And when we got it in, we found it's a brand new fish hook that it had totally straightened out. So whatever size fish that was big enough to straighten this monster hook and slip off. It's a brand new hook, and if you touch it, you can tell it's nice and sharp. And Lang said he had never seen one mangle a hook like that yet. So there's a very real chance I tied into a huge fish and just never got a chance to see him. But I did get to keep the hook as a souvenir, and I'm trying to figure out a way to frame it.
John from Luggy Hat Outdoors. If you like our videos, please subscribe to our channel, and also remember to like us on Instagram and Facebook.